All right, what's going on, CFL fans? Welcome to Season 8, Episode 8 of the BC Lions Den podcast. I'm your host, Brian Warishan, joined by my co-host, Cole McGarvey. We're excited to have you join us here live, or if you're watching us on replay, we appreciate that as well. Before we get started, we would love to ask a favor. If you enjoy our content and would like to help out the show, we ask that you do one small thing and head over to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. It helps us get out there in the world of algorithms and helps the show grow our audience. www.youtube.com/@BCLionsDen. YouTube is also the best way to watch the show live, where you get to participate in the show and send in your questions, which we welcome and highly encourage. In a few moments, we're going to be joined by Senior Manager of Communications and Content for the BC Lions, Matt Baker, who will join us live from training camp in Kamloops. He'll have some updates for us from the tournament capital, and we'll dive in behind the scenes into the day in the life of Matt Baker of the BC Lions. Camp is in full swing, and we've already had some surprises, much like we talked about last week. Let's get to Cole McGarvey now. Cole, some surprises like we talked about last week. We can always expect surprises from training camp.
Yes, I think we ended last week's episode on, pay attention, folks. There's always a few veterans, and Covington being kind of one of them, that ends up kind of being maybe not a shocker or surprise, but eyebrow raiser of like, oh man, an early one in camp, and maybe to the veteran you want to cut him early so he has the chance to maybe go catch on somewhere else. But Brian, it is a good time of year. Obviously, we will have one more show before the Lions play. But heading into the long weekend, we are going to have CFL football on our, whether it's phone screens, laptop screens, with CFL Plus on Monday, which I'm looking forward to. So exciting time of year.
Yeah, the Covington thing, I think the timing of it was a shock. I mean, we talked about last week how he was going to be in tough. We thought he might be in tough this year, but I didn't think he would be cut before camp. I kind of figured he would get a training camp and some preseason games to show whether he still belonged or not. But he still wants to play, according to Farhan Lalji, and Farhan feels like Hamilton might be a good spot for him to kind of go and finish his career, and the place where his dad was a beast for so many years, one of the greatest defensive players of all time, Grover Covington, in the Canadian Football League. So we'll see where he ends up, but I have a feeling he may have to wait till training camps settle a little bit before teams kind of decide if they have room for a Canadian defensive lineman. The other surprise that came out of camp, which was a bit of a shocker, was Bradley Anae being added to the suspension list. Did not report to Kamloops, and the Lions tried to talk him into coming, but I guess his heart's just not in it. So he's decided to sit out the season, or at least for now. The Lions have added him to the suspension list. If he does choose to come back, that will be with the BC Lions, because they still retain his rights by putting him on that list. How long he stays there, I don't know. But for now, at least he's on the suspended list. But that was a bit of a shocker and a bit of a blow to the Lions' depth. Him and Levi Bell certainly worked well together in a rotational role last year.
Yeah, a little bit of a bummer for sure. Had some, fairly high expectations for that kind of rotation this year. Probably makes a lot more sense, and that's why the guys that are in the front office have the jobs instead of us. Why they bring back a guy like Sione Tama, where kind of, initially as an early re-signing, it kind of maybe was like, well, he might be on the outside looking in of the rotation, but he steps in to basically his role that he's had on the team the last few years. Obviously, it's a bummer to lose a guy like Anae, but with a guy like Levi Bell on the roster still, you kind of hold that rotation opposite of Betts. But it was definitely one that was not really whispered at all, and kind of, I believe he didn't report to camp, so one that kind of just was dropped on us, and it is a bummer. Another one that maybe wasn't a shocker, but obviously was built up in the offseason was, Marquez Callaway was also cut on the, I believe, second round of cuts for the BC Lions. He was a name to watch that would potentially be able to fill that fifth receiver spot. So with him out of the mix, obviously that might give some more opportunities to some of the Canadians that we're hearing that might end up being in the starting lineup.
Not only that, but it might mean some of the younger guys have impressed. So, younger, cheaper, that option as well. All eyes are on the offensive line at training camp as well, and early reports are that Corey Woodruff has been looking solid. stepping in for Jarrell Broxton, so that's great news to hear. It's been suggested the Lions would like to maybe go with 4 Americans on the offensive line this year, and that could have factored into the Callaway release as well as they look to start maybe an extra Canadian receiver to make that 4 American offensive linemen format work. Right now, it looks like it's going to be to start the season at least Woodruff, Yates, Couture, Schluger, and Dejon Allen as the starters on the offensive line as we head into the preseason here. So we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, something to monitor, something to keep an eye out for sure. As this will be a situation that I'm sure that'll change not only practice by practice, but it's still early in camp, right? I'm sure once they approach maybe next week's preseason game, we'll start to get more of a better idea, and players are not going to start shift around so much. But it is still, the first few days in camp. So I know we heard Passant was in the rotation. I think heard Ayala. Who knows? Maybe come Monday, Tuesday next week, we're hearing about Nate DeMontignac, who's running with the ones, or maybe even a guy like Nick Senecal. So things will change, but one to monitor for sure. And then, as you mentioned, with the offensive line groupings, a guy like Ane Una, starter at left guard last season, or excuse me, right guard. He could potentially, some days maybe he'll be running with the starters. They'll go with the 2 national guys. And then other days maybe they'll go with the 4 American offensive linemen as well. Different looks. So just trying to get the best 12 guys on the field possible.
John O'Flynn, our guest, Matt Baker, will be coming on in about 3 minutes. Bob Medill, who lives in Kamloops, says Seven McGee is getting reps for a nicked up Stanley Berryhill and looks solid. Xander Horvath is getting reps with the ones as well. So that was our next topic. James Butler and Xander Horvath looking sharp in training camp. And former NFL back Peyton Barber is still in the mix as well. Going to ask Matt Baker if any other running backs have kind of stood out. I think there was somebody mentioned the other day, and his name's escaping me right now. But we'll see what Matt has to say about that.
Yeah, a little more on Xander. I think there was a couple of reports as well that he maybe slimmed down a little bit. He looks a little faster. Still has that same aggressive running mentality, but will be interesting to see in the Canadian game if he's able to add maybe another step or two to his speed. I think that could benefit him even more.
Caden Salter looks like he's won the job for QB3. Should the Lions go with 3 pivots? Beating out Tommy Rittenhouse, who was released yesterday, it remains to be seen if Salter can supplant Chase Bryce for QB2 role, and whether or not the Lions can dress 3 quarterbacks and maybe use him in a short yardage situation, which we talked about last week being pretty important. We don't want Nathan Rourke taking those short yardage reps, and Chase Bryce hasn't really proven that he has the mobility or the knack for short yardage situations quite yet.
Yeah, it's funny to think about, Brian, because we're in such a good position with Nathan Rourke. But you could argue going into the first preseason game, backup quarterback could be one of the biggest positions to watch. Just due to the simple fact that Nathan Rourke it's going to be down in Victoria. Nathan Rourke will end up traveling from Kamloops. I'm pretty positive of it. He'll probably end up most likely handing the ball off 2 or 3 times, maybe a pass or 2, and he'll end up wearing
smile
a
and kiss some babies, and
he'll be wearing a baseball cap on the sideline for the rest of the game. So that means you're going to see Chase Bryce, and you're going to see sorry, what was the quarterback's name that I'm escaping?
Caden Salter.
For likely maybe 2 quarters each. Salter probably getting maybe a majority of the second half, if not the bulk of it, and then Chase Bryce probably getting the first half. So those 2 guys will get a long runway to show what they can in live action, and I would imagine it'll go a long way to maybe in that second preseason game, if a guy like Salter is able to impress, maybe he gets to run with the 2s, and it's a true competition. So we'll see. I'm sure all things are on the table, and it'll be it's kind of been worded that it's kind of Chase Bryce's job to lose. So of course Chase is going to get the first look at it, first crack at it, but I'm sure it remains an open competition.
Thank you for the subscription, John O'Flynn. We appreciate that very much. Yeah, I mean, the one thing that Salter has that Chase Bryce might not is mobility. He's got some great feet work. He can run with the ball. He had some good rushing yards in college. So we'll have to see, just how that battle plays out, and if there is an opportunity for him to supplant Chase Bryce. Okay, we see Matt Baker has joined us now, so let's get him in to the Lions Den. All right, Matt Baker, live from Kamloops, his favorite place in the whole world.
It's up there.
Yeah. What is this? Your 10th camp now? 11th?
Carry the one, 10th camp, 11th year, 10th camp, because of course we missed one back in a previous time. I apparently surpassed 10 years with the club on March 3rd, according to our documents. So,
congratulations.
How are you guys? Good to be on here.
We're doing well. We're going to chat about your role with the BC Lions in a second. But
sure.
People should know that you're also a big CFL fan and a big BC Lions fan outside of working for the team. So we'd love to pick your brain a little bit about what you've seen early on in camp here, and we'll maybe start with the offense if you don't mind. Who's impressed you in the first few days of camp here? Maybe somebody that fans might not know.
Oh, well, first off, I will say day 4, Wednesday. Yeah, we're 4 days in and I already can't keep track of what friggin' day it is. But you want to talk offense, I'll say the defense had a day today. I mean, you talk to Benny right now, you can't get that grin off his face. But from an offensive perspective, it's an interesting one because, what was the number one question coming in here? Offensive line. So I've been chronicling it. I saw you shared it as well, so always appreciate the cross promotion. Corey Woodruff doing time at left tackle, Brandon Yates at his old guard position. But so that's obviously been a story to watch. These running backs that they've brought in, Ryan Rigmaiden will go on record and say this is the best running back room he's ever been around, right?
Wow.
So James Butler, Xander Horvath, both physical, bruising guys. We know what they're capable of, but you assume they're going to keep 2, maybe a third one, on the practice roster or whatever. But Amani Bailey is a guy who's kind of stood out, carried over his success from the rookies over to main camp here. A couple of these receivers worth watching as well. Caden Robinson is a guy that was signed, released to go to minicamp, brought back on the weekend. And there's always surprises, right? I mean, we were excited about the Callaway kid, but as is the case with some of these guys, not necessarily a fit, not necessarily adept at picking up the Canadian game quickly. 3-4 practices, they've trimmed the roster by 15, right? So you really have to take advantage of that opportunity. So, yeah, I'm intrigued by these running backs. And you were talking about Caden Salter before I came on when I was in the waiting room there. That's a guy who's probably going to need to get some work in here throughout. I mean, you said it. He's good with his feet, good athlete, a lot of good college accolades. But I will say Chase Bryce, I mean, he's always kind of been that wild card, but he's been working with the 2s consistently. So Brian Thompson was another receiver, 84, who has made some good plays. And I have to shout out the draft picks. Nate DeMontenac, bit of a slow start, but he's been noticeable, as has been Nick Senecal, the other draft pick out of Hawaii. So, it's so hard, right? You got to be careful, and it's hard to think and rattle off all these names because, as close as I am to it, I don't see everything. I'm not necessarily watching film, but they're pretty excited about the balance on this team.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Senecal because I haven't really heard a lot from camp about him, but saw a nice catch by DeMontenac the other day on one of your reports. Lions looking to go with 4 American offensive linemen. So they're going to need one of those Canadians at least to kind of step up and take a spot. We've talked about Kieran Passant a little bit. His confidence with Nathan Rourke, working with him a lot in the off season. How has he looked? Is he kind of like the leader right now for that Canadian spot?
Yeah, I'd say so. Pretty much been consistent with the ones from the get-go here. And yeah, that's a guy who's reaping the benefits of being with Nathan Rourke in the dog days of winter out at the Surrey training facility. They were even out there in the snow one of those days. You probably saw those pictures we posted back in February, March, whatever it was, the 5 hours of snow we had this winter. So, yeah, the 2 glaring spots on offense. We talked about Jarrell Broxton. We talked about Aiden Eberhardt. Both guys doing what they're entitled to do. That's cash in on free agency. But this is why you bring guys in. I mean, Kieran's in his third year with the program. Maybe it's asking a lot for one of the draft picks to earn a starter spot on day one. You know, as much as we say the crop of Canadian receivers is deeper than it's ever been, a lot of these guys you take and they're projects. You need them to season for a year, to learn for a year. I see our buddy Lauren talking about Herji Mayala. So yeah, he got in. He worked with the starters there as well. So yeah, those were the two glaring questions on offense, and I think we're seeing a lot of those guys reap the rewards. And while we're talking offensive line, a couple of those guys, Michael Couture, Dijon Allen, a bit banged up, nothing serious. So you saw Brandon Yates and Anu Una working with the starters this afternoon. It looked like they were kind of interchanging, swapping between center and right guard. So that's a situation to watch. Doesn't appear to be anything too serious with those two guys, but being this early in camp and knowing you're going to take a rookie-heavy lineup to Langford here in 10 days gives them the luxury of being patient, I think.
What do you think the Lions are going to do short yardage wise? We've been kind of debating that a little bit. We don't really want Nathan Rourke taking as effective as he is and as dangerous as
right.
he is in short yardage. You don't want him getting too nicked up doing that job. Do you think the Lions will go with three quarterbacks and maybe give Salter a chance at doing that short yardage job, or do you think Chase Price can handle it?
Yeah, I would anticipate three quarterbacks being here, whether it's the three that are here currently, whether it's another rookie that comes in. That's always something to watch throughout camp. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting one. I feel your concern there about Mr. Rourke doing the short yardage. We've seen fullbacks do it before. David Mackey was kind of the de facto specialist toward the end of his last year. That's honestly something I'm going to watch out for now that you brought it up, because if you are a Caden Salter looking to make this roster, you're going to have to prove yourself in every area possible, right? We talked about how we like him for his mobility, so maybe that's an area he becomes more up to speed on. That's an interesting one. That'll be one to watch here throughout the next several days for sure.
All right, Cole, let's switch over to the defense.
Yeah, Bakes, you talked about the biggest question mark on the offensive side of the ball. So we got to start with it on the defensive side of the ball. And I think it starts in the secondary. A lot of new faces going to be in play here to, play big roles this season, with obviously Ronald Kent probably being the only name that maybe is penciled in right now. I know TJ Lee, other guys, Gary Peters a little bit banged up right now, but who are some of the new guys that are going to be vying for some of those starting spots that we can, as fans, get used to?
In the secondary specifically, yeah. So you've seen Lorando Johnson, a rookie out of Baylor. He's been at that right corner spot. Left and right corners, I think, is typically how they've been doing it, not necessarily field and boundary. But, these guys are going to have to prove they can play at either of those two spots, right? So, yeah, Lorando Johnson, and then CJ Colden, who he's impressed as well. That was a late free agent signing after he was cut by Ottawa. As for TJ Lee, as for Gary Peters, whenever he gets healthy, those are two guys who, until they prove they can't do it, they're going to be there. So those guys, they have the right mindset. And you probably saw the clip of TJ talking about how hungry he is, year 12. And really, he's missed 2 straight training camps, guys, because remember, he was recovering from the Achilles injury in 2024, went down in the Western Final the previous November, and of course wasn't brought in. And it's no coincidence he comes in last September, and that defense kind of flips a switch. So, but the secondary is not the only element here. A couple other guys they're excited about. Raylan Goforth, he was with the ones talking about who's going to be at will linebacker next to Darnell Sankey. Jeremy Lewis, who was here for much of last year, had a big interception in the first day. So Ryan Rignaden is really excited about a lot of these Americans that they've brought in the last couple of years. And that's a difference you're seeing now that he's calling the shots roster-wise. He's no longer just signing the guys and then leaving it up to the coaches to play them. He has a lot of say, and you're really seeing the fruits of that labor. And like I said, the defense was phenomenal today.
Yeah, our big offseason addition was obviously bringing over Darnell Sankey
Mhm.
to the Lions, and we're already seeing the kind of benefits that he's able to bring to a roster in terms of just a alpha dog, kind of leader of men type of guy in the middle of the defense, whether he's breaking down the team after practice. I'm sure all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Talk a little bit about what you've seen from Darnell so far early in camp.
Yeah, very impressed. You walk up to him and he looks the part, right? He has a presence about him. He's going to be a vocal leader. The captain of the defense is the middle linebacker, right? And seeing him in these various packages and seeing him shoot the gaps and all that, because they're gonna bring pressure up front, and it's gonna really allow these guys on the other levels of the defense to cook, right? And I think you guys are probably in the same boat here. He was always an example of a guy I would see and say, you'd love a guy like that, right? And
Like a
he's a
Solomon
player,
Elnimian kind of player.
yeah. And they've been coveting this player for multiple years now. Before he originally went to Montreal, it appeared that they thought that they were going to get something done with him, but didn't happen. And better late than never. So I would definitely say that's a big story here. The first few days, he's come as advertised.
Yeah, and then looking in the group up front, I think they're going to go a long way to being able to help out the secondary because of not only the names that they have up front, but I think being able to go 8, 9, 10 guys deep. We obviously saw it pretty early. We talked about it to start the show of, an eyebrow raising, Covington getting released before basically camp even starts because of the depth that they have in the interior and the confidence they have in some of those guys up front. So just talk about kind of the group that they have and how talented I think that this group's going to be able to have a season.
Yeah, we know what we get with the likes of Matthew Betts, Jonah Tavai, and Casey Sales, another big addition. Sione Tuhema has kind of reaped the rewards of the whole Bradley Anai situation. Levi Bell at that end spot as well. They've been kind of interchangeable. So, we know what we're going to get from the guys that are back. There's a couple of guys I'm going to name right now who've showed pretty well, and I know for a fact the brass are high on if you look at the roster. One of them's a kid they just signed the other day, AJ Pena, number 94. He was wreaking havoc right from the get-go. David Gusta, 96, another American addition. Those are two names to keep in mind here as camp progresses. So depth, right? It's why you bring all these guys here. And, might sound like a broken record, but listening to Ryan and listening to Neil talk about how this is probably one of the better teams that they've assembled from the get-go. And I know everyone's optimistic in mid-May, right? But if you guys, I don't know if you guys are going to get up here at all, but you watch a practice, you feel the energy, you see it, during one-on-ones. And Skelly, I was on the defensive side of the field yesterday, and even when mistakes were made, guys are positive, talking each other up. So the buy-in is definitely there too. And that's where it all starts, Cole, like you say, up front. And I think it's going to be a pretty nasty group assembled in week 1. 1 month today, I should remind you. We will be in Regina. They'll be basking in the glow, I'm sure. But it's the Lions' job to spoil the party and make it about 26.
Matt, you got a big stretch away from BC Place coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of outline what the club's plans are to kind of keep the guys engaged and get that family feeling going? Because you're going to be on the road for a long time as a group. Does the team get to come home at all between Kamloops and Kelowna, or is it just straight?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so what'll happen is camp will break like it normally does, May 30th, and having a bye to start,
right,
the team will be home, and there'll be some exciting things coming down. So I'll leave it at that week. Okay? But one of them's going to be unveiling the brand new locker room in Surrey.
Oh, yeah.
So, and the team will actually practice a couple days of the week. So it's not the typical bye week where guys just go home and see you in 7 days. So the way the schedule starts allows us to kind of be normal for a few weeks. Then it's a normal road week to Saskatchewan. Then it's a normal road week to Hamilton, be practicing in Surrey the whole time. And the club will actually go up to Kelowna on the Thursday, 2 days before the first game, stay in between, practice near Okanagan College. But that's an interesting one you bring up because, yeah, there's going to be distractions. It's Kelowna. It's the middle of summer. It's Canada Day. It's the lake. It's I don't know if they're allowed to do fireworks of all the fire bans anymore, but you know what I'm saying, right, guys? So Buck and everyone, it's going to be on them to ensure that there are no distractions. And I truly believe the buy-in will be there. Touchdown Pacific, albeit a much shorter time in 2024. That came at a bad time of the year. The team, I think, had lost 5 in a row. That was kind of some good tonic, being away, out of the routine. And hopefully the club fares well the first couple of games, and you don't need that in order to turn things around. But I think it's going to be outstanding, guys, personally, from where I sit here. And the onus will be on the football ops crew to make sure everyone is focused on the task at hand, because these are going to be 2 tough games, Calgary, Edmonton. So a division-heavy schedule to start here, going to have to take advantage.
Yeah, for sure. That's what's kind of gotten the Lions away from hosting the Western Final the last couple of years is a slow start. They've always been in that chase position, so hopefully they can get out to that lead.
Yeah, and just to add to that, yeah, like this whole argument, the season starts at Labor Day, that's garbage.
Yeah.
Right? I hate that for the reasons you just outlined, right?
Yeah.
If a couple games go a different way early July, August, yeah, this team is at home in November for the West Final. So there you go. Sorry, Maynard, said to get that off my chest because I've always hated that.
Before we get into your role with the club, because I do want to get into some of the behind the scenes stuff that happens with your job. Returners, Seven McGee, obviously getting a bigger role in the offense. Is a plan to still have him as a returner as well, or is there an addition for a returner this year to replace him?
I would say Seven would have that spot right now, and it's kind of the Chris Rainey factor with him. Remember, Rainey was always itching to do more on offense. So, he's a wide receiver by trade. So Jermaine Jackson has been returning kicks. If you remember the Langford game last year, he scored the touchdown on offense. So Jermaine has been in and out with injury, but he's back trying to earn a full-time spot. And in fact, it was Seven who kind of took the ball and ran with it when Jermaine went down last year after 4 games, I think it was. Jalen Darden, sorry, I neglected to mention him when we were talking about newcomers, number 11, wide receiver. He's been getting some looks in the return game, as have been a couple of defensive backs, Bruce Harmon, and one who's escaping me right now because there's still like 86 bodies here. So, but to answer your question, I would expect another big year out of Seven McGee.
Seven McGee, of course, going from number 77 to number 8.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into your role. As we mentioned, your 11th season, or starting your 11th season with the BC Lions, but you started out in the media. So how was that transition going from media member to basically a media member for a team?
Yeah, and it's kind of, at the time I did it, it was kind of a new thing. A lot of teams at that time were still kind of starting to embrace the idea of having their own media people do their own content. And you guys know the dearth of regular media coverage in the market. You want people filling these roles. So yeah, kind of started out as a digital social media coordinator, and it's a tribute to my predecessor in the communications role, Jamie Cartmell, kind of helped get me in back at that point, and he just basically told me the world is your oyster. Write stories, help with video, do whatever you can to help us build a presence. So did that. I still do a little bit of that. I dabble in a lot of website writing, host on camera like you see here at time to time. So yeah, the transition wasn't necessarily a hard one because covering the Lions was something I did regularly as an employee of Team/TSN 1040. So I kind of knew the lay of the land. Been following the team since I was a young guy, 7 years old, started going to games. So was kind of always a passion of mine, following the BC Lions, and being able to work in it and to expand my role a bit over the years has truly been awesome too. So, and I'll tell you what, when it's humming, like when this team's winning, last year 7 straight and seconds away from freaking getting out of Mosaic Stadium with a Grey Cup berth, those are the times when it feels really rewarding. So people often ask me what my highlight was. It hasn't happened yet. So that's what we're all striving for.
That was going to be one of my questions, and I think I know what your answer would be. Going through right.
I can, this team. I can give you a couple though. Like last year's Western semifinal, I'm like hair standing up on the neck a little bit as with all the lead changes in the final few minutes. I don't know if you guys probably remember in 2017 when Travis Lulay had lost his job to Jonathan Jennings, and Jennings got injured. I think it was like the first or second play of the game. Someone landed on it. Was Davon Coleman, who was a future Lion, kind of landed on his shoulder. Travis has to come off the bench, and what does he do? He proceeds to throw for a career high 436, I think it was, in a big win over Hamilton. Brian Burnham had one of his insane touchdown catches. That was in Hamilton, hostile environment. That was a big one. First year Western semifinal win over the Blue Bombers. That was a big one. Again, nerve-wracking at the end. So there has been some. I don't want to just downplay it. But it's a lot of hours. It's irregular stuff. It's being away from my wife and kid for 3 weeks at a time every May. That stuff gets hard, but it's being there in the moment. The concert kickoffs as well that we've done in the past. Not planning anything this year with all the circumstances in Kelowna, unfortunately, but that's the way it goes. When you're in the fire, when you see the fruits of your labor come through, and we have a great staff here. We have a great team, starting, of course, at the top with Amar and Dwayne and Carolyn, Cody, Colby, everyone working hard to sell tickets and suites. Teamwork is a special part of it, too.
Sure. Big. You mentioned kind of the root of your fandom starts with you being a little kid, rooting for the Lions growing up. So I'm curious. I wanted to throw a fun one at you as you've surpassed a decade or about to. Do you have any like sideline or game day superstitions? I know a lot of people talk about like, oh, I'm not superstitious. I'm a little stitious in terms of like maybe you stand on a certain yard line if the team's doing well or anything fun like that.
I'm not really a superstitious guy, but one thing I always do, I don't think it's for luck or anything, but I reach into the trainer's table and grab a handful of gum and just chew gum all game, put a new piece in every TV timeout. It's kind of one of my weird rituals. Not really a superstition thing because I'm not that way, but that's one of those. It's one of those rituals I have that I just can't really explain it.
I like it. I'd take advantage of a bucket of bubble gum and myself if I had access to it.
What bakes? No Skittles?
No, that's a tribute to our old friend Lucky Whitehead. Although he did give me some candy one time. We're in Montreal. He says, "Bake, here, stick your hand out." It wasn't Skittles. It was some kind of thing. Yeah, something like that. Marshawn Lynch had the Skittles. That's who we're thinking about.
Yeah.
My
next one, Bake, for
you was... question. I just want to sneak in this question from a viewer. Who are some of the key people who helped you succeed with the BC Lions organization? Great to hear your own lovely family who are key always with your success. I think you mentioned Jamie Cartmel as one. Is there any others? Or?
Yeah, so around the same time, Alex Ruiz was running our digital media, and she kind of helped to get me accustomed to that side of it. So she was a big mentor, big inspiration. Not with the club anymore, but still a good friend. I mentioned, currently, Carolyn Cody's always good and always motivating us to have fun and do better. And, the people I work closely with, we've talked about Nick Kowalski. You guys have spoken with him before. He's brought that's exactly right. He's brought a whole new element of eliteness, if that's a real word, to our video and digital content. So shout out to Jill and Tyler, who are newer additions to our department. So we work well as a team. But yeah, going back to the very start, Jamie and Alex for sure.
Sorry, Cole, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, all good. I'm curious now, Biggs, as you've kind of seen the league change and whatnot now, and we're in such a good position to have Canadian talent with obviously guys like Nathan Rourke, Matthew Betts. But as Canadians, obviously, we're kind of always wanting to root for them and see guys like, the Brady Oliveras, the Nathan Rourkes, as I mentioned, kind of be at the top of the CFL. How cool has that been to see kind of the Canadian position evolve over the last, since you've started, even before that, when you started kind of watching the CFL, to now, where now it's accustomed to see a lot of, Canadian receivers and DBs and stuff like that, where, before it was kind of just, the offensive lineman kind of thing.
Yeah, huge. And yeah, the Nathan Rourke thing is a big one, because now you're going to see young guys try to follow that lead. And another name I think a viewer popped up here earlier was Jackson Finley, 4th generation BC Lion. So yeah, that's a very interesting point, Cole, because you used to automatically look at the draft and say, okay, which offensive lineman could they take here and could maybe mold into a starter? So not just this year, but there's been other previous years now where the Lions have gone skill positions, wide receiver, a defensive back. But I'll tell you what, the Nathan Rourke impact, you're already seeing it, right? This is a guy who has 2 years of starts under his belt. I think he's 33 and I think he's 23 and 13 as a starter. That's a small sample size. He's only going to get better. So your question is interesting, because what we want is, as much as we talk about how we want young fans to keep coming back, the young players are going to have to keep getting better as well. So yeah, that's definitely been an interesting one I've liked.
You talked about the renovated facilities, and I guess that's coming to a completion pretty soon here. Players, I guess some of the players have seen sneak peeks of it already. Are they excited about what's to come? And are fans going to have an opportunity to, maybe season ticket holders, take a tour of the facility once it's done? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so as of this conversation, not yet complete. Construction was really heating up, but the new lockers are in, seeing the new kitchen countertops. There's been some painting. So the finishing touches are going to have to take place here while we're away. So now that we are away, I'm sure that will be done. And I hope so. I hope there's an opportunity to allow some of you guys to come see it. Going to plan some media in there at some point. Can for sure maybe loop you guys into that if you want to come down and see it. But I'll inquire as to any possible fan gatherings in there, because based on what we've seen, based on the plans, it's going to look pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, well, definitely an improvement of what's been there for many years. Yeah, so, and even the new BC Place renovations are a big improvement for you guys as well. When you look at the showers that were there and the showers that are there now, and I think it's going to add to the comfort level of the players for sure. And that's, you know, some of these report cards that have been coming out, maybe they'll bump up the grades a little bit, you know.
I cannot and will not comment on the report cards. I will refer you to David Mackey.
Okay.
But you're right.
Yeah, let's just hit you with a couple quick ones here. I know you're a busy guy and you got to get going, but favorite road city?
Oh, that's easy. Montreal.
See another good one here. What's the best untold Matt Baker road trip story?
Plead the fifth.
Plead the fifth. Oh, must be a juicy one.
Well, what do you want me to? No, I mean, it's the road is good. You mentioned Montreal. There's a great cigar bar. I went and toured the old Montreal Forum site one time. Anything that's untold, I can't think of anything I would want to be untold. It's always a good time.
Maybe a funny story that you can recall, that something that happened to you on the road. Maybe, you spilt water in your luggage or something like that.
I left my shaving kit in a hotel room once. Is that good?
Okay.
I think I overslept. It was one of those we were staying over and I overslept and I was going to miss the flight. So there you go.
It's worth
There's a
using the
good one.
shaving kit.
Yeah.
Last one before I let you go. Fans often want instant updates, and how do you balance transparency with the team's competitive interests?
Yeah, I mean, just because it's on bclions.com, I mean, doesn't necessarily mean it can't be critical. But at the same time, yeah, we can't lobby for guys to be benched. We can't lobby for people to lose jobs. And I think one model that you take, if you check out Ed Tate does a great job at bluebombers.com. And that's kind of a cue I took from him, because if the team loses a bad game, you're not going to talk about how good the punter was, right? So, and I think as we've evolved and we've gotten more developed in teams having their own content, like I mentioned, Ed, you see beat writers working for teams now. So a lot of those guys aren't just going to completely turn in their journalism card. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's a little. It's last year was a bit easier because it was a winning season, and I think as we evolve, it becomes a little bit more easy to be transparent.
Yeah, it's a lot easier when you're winning, for sure. And I know that just from podcasting. It's one of the things that kind of stopped me from podcasting, because there was a lot of losing seasons during our last go around. Matt, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I know you got a lot on your plate, and I know you had to shuffle some things around to be here tonight, so I appreciate you. Would love to chat with you maybe down the road again. Make sure everybody follows the First and Now podcast on the official BC Lions podcast on YouTube and on bclions.com. Matt and Nick Kowalski, the hosts on that, and they have some great guests on and some great information for you with the official podcast of the BC Lions. But we wish you all the best, and hopefully camp flies by for you and we start seeing some bullets fly for real here in the future.
Appreciate it, guys. And I want to commend you both for relaunching this project. We need more people talking about our great club and our great league. So I'll juggle around for you anytime, guys. Don't hesitate.
All right. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Biggs.
Okay, boys. Have a good night.
Bye. All right. Matt Baker of the BC Lions. He is the guy that gets us our player guests, our coach guests. He is the man who handles all of that for us. So we appreciate his time tonight and everything he does for the podcast. Comments, Cole? Any?
Yeah, I have to give a big shout out to Matt Baker. He's been very gracious to me over the last number of years. As just kind of some, I'm sure, independent random kid that kind of approached him via email one day, just wanting to, kind of start in the, getting some media credentials, being able to go to Lions games and cover them a little bit through kind of our platform before. So Bakes has been awesome to us in the past, and I just can't thank him enough.
All right. We got a bit of time left here. If chat wants to throw some topics and have some conversations with us, that would be great. What I do want to do is throw up the depth chart again and kind of take a look at how that stands at this moment. I haven't really updated it too much, but honestly, not a lot has changed from what we saw to start camp, other than we'll plug some stuff in here. Let's get this up and get Cole on there. Okay, so we'll start by looking at the offense again. The one area where we might make some changes is we're going to put
Whoops, sorry, Brian.
Luger into Una's spot, and we're going to put Yates at the left guard position for now. Interesting to hear that Dejon Allen's nicked up again. That's
great, Brian.
Not great. I hope it's not the bicep. We really need him to step up, especially with Joshua Coker out till who knows when, with still recovering from that knee surgery. So, okay, so that's one change we're going to make with Woodruff. We're going to add Yates in there. this right here is probably what they're looking at for a starting offensive line to start the year, barring any injuries or last-minute additions or changes. We've gotten rid of Rittenhouse, so this is your QB depth chart at the moment with Salter. We're going to put him into black now. I'll do that later. Salter with the third QB spot. Barber's still in it. There was another name that he mentioned, slipping my mind right now. Can you remember who he was talking about at the running back spot? Who was from pressing? Do you remember the name?
I have the roster here. Give me a second. I thought it was Bailey.
Amari Bailey.
Yeah.
Is it Bail?
Yeah, number 29 on the roster.
Can't type right now.
But as Bakes kind of teased, he mentioned that I believe it was Riggs had very high praise for the running back room, called it the best he's ever been around. When you look at the four names that are currently on the roster, right, with the other one being Peyton Barber, Bailey, they've liked what they've seen so far early in camp. So good thing to have if you're the BC Lions. A lot of competition at the top. Of course, you have arguably the best back in the CFL in James Butler, the best complete back in my mind. It's good to have competition around him to continue to push him, to continue to have him play at his best, and kind of feel like there's dogs behind him nipping at his heels to push him to his highest level.
Manny Bailey is RB3, so you've got him ahead of Travis. Is it Travis Barber?
Peyton Barber.
Peyton Barber. You've got him ahead of Barber so far in camp. Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
And I believe if it's Lauren's the former province editor, I believe I've been interacting with him a little bit on Twitter. He's been up in Kamloops, which has been nice. He's been kind of one of the lone media outlets that have been up there kind of giving us a little bit of updates outside of obviously Bakes and them. It was nice to listen to some personnel updates I did at work today.
Yeah. And okay, so I removed Coker. He's on the injured list. Isaiah Cage is a guy that we haven't really heard a lot about from training camp so far. Interesting to see how he's performing. We'll have to kind of look for some information on that.
Which obviously could go two ways, because the old saying of like, as an offensive lineman, maybe it's a good thing to not hear too much. Maybe he's doing his job, but then it's like, well, I would like to hear maybe a few good reviews.
Yeah. All right, so the depth chart on defense, we'll start with the defensive line. Levi Bell, Levi, Sales, and Betts are probably the starters.
Lauren mentioning too, Peyton Barber's injured right now. It's another good nugget to keep an eye on.
Oh, okay. Has he missed practices or just sitting out reps?
I'm not too sure. That would be one to definitely. I'm curious because obviously preseason looming. That's a big opportunity for those guys that are vying for that spot.
Yeah, if he's not going to be able to play in the preseason, he's probably going to get cut.
Yeah,
especially with the guys they have on the roster right now. I don't think any of this has changed. I don't know if any of that's changed. Although we did mention
Jeremy Lewis last week.
Jeremy Lewis, and there was another person that Matt Baker meant. I should have took notes, but I'll update this later after I listen to the show again. Yeah, so I think this back line is probably pretty solid. He did say Colden has performed well, so we're going to leave him in that spot. Senecal, we'll see what happens with him. DeMontenac, slow start, but has been coming on according to Matt Baker. And Pessoant. I have so much problem with these French names. I just can't get that right pronunciation. So yeah, I mean, we're not too far off, I think, on some of our early predictions. We'll have to see how it goes into the preseason here and who gets reps where. Seven McGee still looking like the returner, with a couple other guys that were mentioned as well. So
yeah, Jalen Darden was one of those. I'm curious to keep an eye on him. He was a guy that I was kind of, the NFL draft craze, kind of the can't miss late round prospects that I thought the Bills would maybe go after back in his draft class. He ended up falling through the cracks, not being kind of a NFL consistent player. was a name that I mentioned in our 5 storylines to watch going into camp of potentially a player with a little bit of juice. Bake said that possibly as a returner maybe hasn't impressed too much, and well, he didn't bring up anything in terms of any offensive plays that he was making, but did mention getting some looks in the return game. So a guy like Jalen Darden, probably a name to monitor in some preseason action, because that's your biggest practice. You can definitely get a pretty good impression, but if you're able to stick out like a sore thumb in some of these games, I think it goes a long way for some of those front offices remembering you come cut down.
Lauren Smith says Jeremy Lewis, Raylan Goforth, and Parker McKenna all look good at will, but Ben Haladic is a solid number 1 on that unit so far.
Yeah, I think we talked about it last week, Brian. Like, I think Haladic kind of gets a little bit of too much slack in the fan base at times, of whether it's just criticism or whatnot, and people are quick to blame him. But I think he's just a very consistent player at that position. You know what you're going to get from him. More often than not, he's going to be in the right place. He's not going to be out of position. And I think he's also a Canadian, right? So that adds even more value to his name.
I think with Haladic as well, like a lot of the times he was getting slack, the Lions didn't have a very good pass rush, and they weren't very good at stopping the run. So guys were hitting that second level quite a bit, and Haladic was getting exposed. Not so much exposed, but he was having to make tackles a lot more often than he should have been.
What's the first jersey number you see and you're blaming poor Ben Haladic?
Yeah. So we'll have to keep an eye on this group for sure. I think Jeremy Lewis will probably replace Royer at this point.
Royer, yeah, for sure.
Royer, and I think Kevin Konar. I think Adam Konar is going to be more of a special teams player if he sticks in the roster. I don't see him getting a lot of playing time here.
Big time. He's getting up there in age as well as a veteran. So I think his kind of where he's going to cut his teeth this year will definitely be on special teams. It was interesting to hear Baker mention that they're going to go back or going to continue the right and left side. That was a thing that was started, I believe, in the GP Edwards Cooper days, where GP kind of felt it was he was confident enough in Edwards Cooper being on the other side that they didn't necessarily go boundary field side, where more often than not Gary Peters is kind of in the boundary taking that other team's number 1 receiver more often than not. He was trusting Edwards Cooper on the other side that I'm going to stay on my right side, you stay on your left side, regardless of what formation, who lines up where, that they're going to do it again this year. I know they dabbled a little bit last year with right and left, but more often than not, I would say probably 6 out of the 9 teams are going to play boundary side and field side. So one that Gary Peters kind of has been more comfortable in that, I think, just playing on the right side of the field opposed to flip-flopping.
Yeah, and Lorendo Johnson has taken all live reps at Gary Peters' position, according to Lauren Smith again.
What are your thoughts on that, Brian? I know we talked about it quite a bit.
I'm concerned. Like, is he healthy or not?
Yeah, I don't know if you caught it. They mentioned on First and Now that it was the same knee that's been bothering him.
We cannot go through another season with a one-legged Gary Peters. We just can't. I think back to that Western final and that final drive, Gary Peters was getting exposed, and like, we need a healthy Gary Peters, or we need somebody to replace Gary Peters. That's a big thing for me. He was injured most of last season, and it showed. And I don't think we can go through that again. I hope he can get healthy. I hope he can contribute still. He's been a warrior for this team, but at the end of the day, we need somebody who can be consistent back there.
You talked about the OGs of the lines of, guys like Dante Marsh, Ryan Phillips, Corey Banks, those guys being Wall of Fame type players. I think it's fair to say, like, for what Gary Peters and TJ Lee, like, those are the same caliber of players. Like, they've been with the team 10 plus years. They've been all-star caliber type players. Like, love what they've done for the uniform. It's just unfortunate that, Father Time's undefeated. There's a reason why they say it, right? Where, and the bummer thing, I think, for GP and Dejon Allen is, like, we're in the season now too, and it's hard to really get healthy when you're going, right? Opposed to coming in healthy. And just once you're going, it's kind of hard to get back to 100% when you're banging every week and the contact's there and stuff like that. So we'll cross everything we can, the toes, feet, eyes, whatever you can to hopefully summon the health gods over to both those fellas.
But I mean, at the end of the day, too, you have to have a replacement for those players.
Yeah.
Is a 75% Gary Peters better than a rookie who's getting torched on a daily basis? So it's such a juggling act and such a fine tune situation that I'm glad I'm not the coaches, and and Benny and Buck are going to have to figure out what's best for the team.
Well, Riggs takes pride in that too, right? Making sure that the roster has the depth enough to, sustain injuries. He's not bringing 90 plus guys to camp that he thinks, 30 of them can't make it. He's bringing all 90 guys that he thinks are rosterable type players. So hopefully somebody can rise to the occasion. As Lauren mentioned, Lorendo Johnson, is that was the name, correct?
Lorendo Johnson.
Yeah.
Lorendo Johnson. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that just about does it for us. I think that's probably going to do it. Okay. Our thanks again to Matt Baker for making time for us, and make sure you follow his work on bclions.com as well as First and Now podcast, the official podcast of the BC Lions. If you enjoyed the show, please click that subscribe button on YouTube. The links are right here in front of you. It really does help the show grow, and we would love to have you as part of our BC Lions Den family. We have nothing planned for next week's show yet, but it is ahead of the first preseason game against the Edmonton Eskimos, so I think we'll try and get some of the guys on from Turf District to have a little bit of a preview for that and find out what's going on with the Elks. Until then, I am Brian Walrish, and he is Cole McGarvey, and thanks for watching the show, and as always, roar you Lions roar.